He proposed that he's ready to fight without shorts at all.
Welcome back to Fighting Words. I'm Chris Maxwell, joined as always by senior combat writer Andreas Hale and senior combat editor Tom Gray. Last week during our episode, we talked about Oleksandr Usyk versus Daniel Dubois for the defense of the unified heavyweight title. And we made the mistake of saying that that was going to be a very clear, definitive win for Oleksandr Usyk. And while he did win in a 9th round stoppage, it wasn't as clear or less controversial than we thought it was going to be. It actually was very controversial to the point where there are people still talking about whether or not Usyk deserved to retain those titles. And that, of course, came after what was deemed a low blow hit in the 5th round by Daniel Dubois that gave Oleksandr Usyk 4 minutes to maintain his composure and get up to continue the fight. Now, the debate is whether or not that was actually a low hit or not. So I want to turn it to you guys to discuss. When that hit came from Daniel Dubois and Usyk fell to the canvas, the ref said it was a low blow. But a lot of the replays show that maybe it really wasn't that low. So what were your thoughts when you saw the replay up close?
My thoughts at the time were that the shot was legitimate, that he had been struck adjacent to his navel. Now, it's very difficult because I didn't take the shot, and the point of impact can be hard to gauge. But I've seen replays from other angles, and I just feel, I've read people say that it hit him on the bladder. It didn't, not unless his bladder is in the wrong place. Your bladder is, not to get too scientific about it, but an inch or so above your bits. That's where everyone's bladder is. It certainly wasn't that low. I thought it was adjacent to where his navel would be. His shots were high. And that's the problem I had with it. Now, there's rules and regulations that we'll get into. But in terms of the actual target area where the shot went to, I thought the shot was legitimate.
It was a low blow. You want to know why? Because the referee said it was a low blow. Here's the thing. This is all the referee's fault. I'm not going to blame Dubois. I'm not going to blame Usyk. I'm going to blame the referee because you need to outline where the low blow is. And if you look at the replays, which the referee didn't have, he just saw what he saw. It was right at the belt line. And if you're watching it, it could have been a smidge low. My biggest issue with this is that we've had so many people debating this subject, and low blows happen in boxing all the time. Some fighters fake the funk. Some don't. But usually when the referee says continue because it wasn't a low blow, we always see the other fighter jump up and they're like, all right, my bad. I can't milk this anymore. Let me go ahead and fight. Oleksandr, something happened there. I don't know, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, if it would have incapacitated him for the rest of the fight. I feel like he was milking it. But judging by the referee's discretion and the rules that he outlined and the belt line, which he didn't outline in the ring to say this is low, this is not, it's a low blow and you got to move on. My biggest thing is Daniel Dubois. You could say that you were robbed of a victory, but then you got your ass kicked for the rest of the fight. I'm sorry. It was a low blow. You move on. These borderline calls are borderline. But here's the best thing. You guys ready for this? This is the best thing that could have happened to Oleksandr Usyk's career, because we were just talking about how he's one of the most unknown heavyweights in the world, despite all of his credentials and his accomplishments. Now we're talking about Oleksandr Usyk because of controversy. This is the most spotlight that Oleksandr Usyk has had probably his entire career stateside. Americans didn't even care about Oleksandr Usyk until this happened, and now people are questioning how good is Oleksandr Usyk because I saw him get stopped by a body shot. Good for you, Usyk, because now we have something to talk about because you've just been beating up people, including Anthony Joshua. But now that we've had this low blow controversy, now we got something to talk about. So good on you, Oleksandr Usyk.
So obviously the biggest issue is just defining, what is a low blow. And when you do look it up in the boxing rule book, it says anything below the waistline. But then there are people who say it's anything below the belt, assuming it's the man bits. But my question, even just as, a casual boxing fan watching this, how do we address this issue moving forward where, does the line have to be below the belly button where that belt is, or does it have to be covering the navel? how do we fix this issue so that it's not a matter of millimeters determining what is a low blow and what is not?
Well, I mentioned this yesterday on social media, and to Andreas's point, the fact that we're saying that the blow was low because the referee didn't point out that Usyk's trunks were high is a flaw with the referee, in my opinion. It should have been made clear during the instructions at centre ring, your cupping trunks are a bit high, punches here are still good. He didn't do that. And that's why we're able to say now, oh, well, the referee didn't say it, so it was a low blow. The bottom line is the defining line for a low blow is the belly button or the navel. If your belly button is showing, then punches need to stay above the waistline. In Usyk's case, his belly button was not showing in that fight. After the fight, and this is quite relevant, after the fight, his corner team, post-fight, pulled his trunks down and exposed his belly button, which I thought was quite controversial in itself. That wouldn't normally be the first thing a cornerman was thinking about after you'd won a fight. So his trunks were pulled down, but during the fight, it was covered. So the referee, at centre ring should have said, your trunks are a bit high, punches there are still good. Then this, I think, would be more controversial. But in answer to the question, what is a body, where is a low blow? It's anything below the navel, which becomes difficult to point out when the navel is covered. Then it's all guesswork. And everyone, it's like when someone fails a performance-enhancing drugs test, everyone is a chemist. Now everyone is a biologist and an expert on anatomy. Oh, it was a bladder, oh, it was here, it was there. No, it was adjacent to his navel, which was covered. But because the referee didn't point out the rules properly at centre ring, which should now, after this nightmare, become mandatory in world title fights, a referee should say, even if the trunks are fine, yours are good, yours are good. Don't punch on the belt or below. And, everyone knows where they're at. Media, teams, fans, everyone would have known, but the referee did not indicate what a low blow would be in that fight, and I think that's why we're having this conversation, and I'm not letting the referee off with that. A lot of people are, but I'm not.
Yeah, this is the referee fault, but it's like the umpire in the strike zone in baseball, right? Like, what determines the strike zone? We've seen borderline calls in baseball all the time. It doesn't win or lose games by that one call in particular, but it can affect the turnout to some degree. The belt being above the navel, like, it's a cardinal rule. Like, everybody knows that. What's below the belt? You want to know what below the belt is? A punch in the nuts. That's what the below the belt is. Anything above that is questionable, especially when you have it covered up. So I'm not necessarily sure here what we can do to fix this moving forward, because it's always going to be borderline punches. I just wish the referee would have outlined where he said where he believes the punches would be low. Then we fix it.
That's what you do. That's what you do. Make it mandatory, Andreas. Make that mandatory, and then that's you solve the problem.
Yeah, and then you fix it, but we're still going to have borderline calls. Tyson Fury wears his trunks all the way up to his nipples. It is what it is. As long as the referee,
just tell the opponent, you just tell the opponent you can punch on the waistline. You can punch slightly below.
Because some boxers, the trunks are so ridiculous that the waistline is like a cummerbund in a tuxedo, and it's like this big. So it's like when you're punching on the waistline, it's like it's a huge target. Like, where can I hit you at? Is what fighters start to try to figure out. The referee guy has to figure this out. Moving forward, hopefully they take care of this so we don't have any more controversy moving, in the future. But yeah, the punches look borderline. It could have went either way. It's the referee's fault for figuring it out. I don't think Usyk bailed out on the fight. I don't think Dubois has a legit claim that he was robbed. Just like we just got to move on. It is what it is.
But Dubois did make those claims that he was robbed, that he was cheated. And while we all thought that this was going to be a one and done fight, let's move on. Let's continue to complain about Fury not fighting Usyk. Now there's calls for a rematch. Do we think there should be, or that we will see, a rematch between Usyk and Dubois?
I cannot blame Team Dubois for chasing it. I mean, I think Frank Warren will actually look to get that fight declared a no contest. That'll be his opening gambit, knowing fine well that's not going to happen, and hoping, because he's asked for that they might say, okay, Dubois, you can have a rematch. I've given this some thought. I think if this had happened to Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder even, definitely Tyson Fury, those guys carry the type of name recognition where you can kind of force your case with a governing body. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Dubois is just not big enough to create that type of stuff. And I think the WBA, here's what I think is going to happen, right? And I'll be on record. Daniel Dubois entered that fight with the very lightly regarded WBA regular title, which isn't worth much, right? But it's still, TV broadcasters use it. to say it's a world championship fight. I think the WBA will say you're not getting a rematch, but that title that Dubois or Usyk is just taking off you, go and fight Trevor Bryan again for it, or go and fight some other heavyweight for it, and you can become champion again. There'll be some sort of charity compensation that he'll get, but he's not going to get a rematch. I think Team Dubois is like a microcosm in the heavyweight picture. He's not going to get a rematch. I just don't think he's got the power to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Tom. The other issue is Daniel Dubois got his ass kicked the rest of that fight. It wasn't like it was a close fight from that point on. Like, Oleksandr Usyk won that fight running away, and he stopped him with a right hand that more so looked like Dubois quit than a devastating punch. And I know people said Dubois quit against Joe Joyce. I don't think he quit. You get your orbital fractured. That's different. Here, I just think he got his ass kicked. And in that final round, he took that punch. He was like, I've had enough. But prior to that, it wasn't like it was a relatively close fight. It wasn't like it was
I agree. But the only thing I'll say is here is the immediate response to that. Yes, he got up and he won the rest of the fight. He dominated the rest of the fight after getting a 4-minute break. Okay, if your argument, if your Team Dubois is, could he have done the same thing? Could he have definitely done the same thing when he had less than 10 seconds? Because initially when Usyk rose, he didn't look great. Not for the seconds after the fight started, which he could have been cold. But the bottom line is the only way Dubois could have won that fight, you know it and I know it, is to clean Usyk out with the kind of punch that he landed. Say, for example, that had landed higher and took him out. He can't outbox him. He has to knock him out. So it's okay saying that he lost the rest of the fight, but Usyk did get a massive break. That's what you'll say for Team Dubois.
I agree. At the time, I agree with that. Again, the referee lost control of this. Like, how many minutes do you have to give a human being? Yes, I know you can give him up to 5 minutes, right? But it got a little ridiculous after a while. You okay? You ready to fight? You okay? You ready to fight? Like, he won't get it for the reasons that Tom outlined. Daniel Dubois is just not a big enough star, and he's just not good enough. He'll get some kind of consolation prize, and he'll complain about this, and it'll be the bane of Dubois' existence. I got robbed against the unified heavyweight champion of the world. That'll be his claim to fame. But other than that, I don't think anybody wants to see this rematch other than Team Dubois, because what we saw after that was not relatively close at all.
Even before that, it's not like Dubois put on, one hell of a fight to where it was close. I mean, when you guys scored the fight, did you give any rounds to Dubois?
I think I had it one. I think I had it one round. I mean, I don't think we should focus too much on that. The reason I'm saying it is he was always going to get outboxed. Dubois' mother would know he was going to get outboxed. It's impossible to outbox Usyk if you're Dubois. He's not quick enough. He's not agile enough. He doesn't have the skill set to do it. He has to clean him out with a single punch. And the only reason I'm playing devil's advocate here is what happened before it and what happened after it is kind of irrelevant if you're Dubois. He knew he had to clean him out with one punch. And the way his team will look at it is, we've done it. And then you give the guy a 4-minute break and allow him to come back. That's the argument right back. No, he couldn't do nothing with him. I don't think any heavyweight in the world can do a thing with Usyk other than Tyson Fury. I think he outboxes them all. So what happened before and after is kind of irrelevant. That's my take anyway.
Yeah, I agree to a point, because it's the only way you could get out of there. Remember when Mike Tyson knocked down James Buster Douglas for like 23 seconds or however long it was, and they used that as a complaint, as that's why Mike Tyson lost the fight, because James Buster Douglas got forever on the canvas. This is kind of the same argument, right? Like, Mike was losing that fight before and after, but you can make an argument that that particular point in time cost you the opportunity for him to defend his titles and for Dubois to be the unified champion. So I get it. I just don't care. Like, we can move on.
That's fair. That's fair enough. But that's totally fair enough. But I think if you're Team Dubois, right, if you're sitting with a Team Dubois hoodie in your locker, then you care. And I can't blame them for caring. I think they've got a case.
Well, unfortunately, even moving on isn't that exciting, because I think we all know that we're still not going to see Fury Usyk anytime soon after this. So if we're not going to get a rematch, what's next for Usyk? How many times have I asked that question? But who should he fight next?
I hope that it's Tyson Fury next after Tyson blasts out Ngannou. I hope we see the Fury fight in 2024. The cynical part of me says that we will see Usyk against Filip Pergovic, who's Usyk's IBF mandatory. That's what I think will happen.
Yeah, Tom, it's going to be Filip Hrgović. They're already campaigning for it. It's a fight that nobody cares about. Listen, I hope the Fury beats and cleans out Ngannou and says, now it's time for the fight that everybody wants to see. And then we can get hype and get excited and we get Fury and Usyk and they figure out the nonsense. I just don't believe that's happening. It'll be Oleksandr Usyk defending his unified titles against Filip Hrgović in a fight that nobody cares about.
Well, I have a feeling I'll be asking that question even more times then, because it's not going away anytime soon. But there is another fight happening this weekend we could talk about real quick. We have a rematch between Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr. in Manchester. Who do you guys got for that fight?
Yeah, I mean, going into the first fight, I thought Liam could conceivably win the fight. I thought he would get ripped off on the cards. That's what I predicted. Pure cynical. He stopped him in 4 rounds, hurt him badly, took his legs away. And I think you're going to see the exact same. Similar, again, I think the fight will go a bit longer, but I think Liam Smith is too seasoned, too wise. And I think it's very rare that Chris Eubank comes across someone who can match his toughness. And he's got it this time because Liam Smith is as tough as nails. So I think Smith by stoppage.
Yeah, I think Smith by stoppage as well. Chris Eubank has a puncher's chance, and he's tough as nails, but Liam Smith is just a little bit tougher and a little bit more grizzled than Chris Eubank. He's willing to go into those deep waters. I don't even know if Liam Smith is going to have to, but I think he's going to stop him probably mid to late rounds. Eubank's he's already tasted defeat before. He'll find himself in familiar territory that he doesn't like, and he'll get stopped again.
All right, well, Liam Smith, then that was easy. But other than that, I guess we really didn't solve any of the world's problems around boxing as far as what's a low blow, what's legit, what's not. I guess just keep it above the belt. But I'm sure there will be more talk on this in future fights. But until then, thanks for watching. I'm Chris Maxwell for Andreas Hale and Tom Gray. This is Fighting Words, and we will see you next week.